School's out and McBee's in Ridgeland is the perfect place for family fun this summer. Enjoy our $12 Blue Plate specials every Monday through Friday, and now kids eat for just $5. Bring the whole crew out to our huge patio with lots of TVs, plenty of fans, and a safe space where kids can play while you kick back and relax. Family friendly, budget friendly, and always a good time. McBee's Bar and Grill, buzzing the res since 1982. Check us out at McBee's Bar and Grill on Facebook for today's Blue Plate special.
All right, folks, we're back, and it is Wednesday. Glad to be back here in the studios. And our call-in number, which we won't be taking calls yet, is 879-0002. And the hotline number is brought to you by EliteRoofer.com. EliteRoofer.com for your first, second, or third estimate. Give them a call. Keep this number handy, 601-326-2755. All right, folks, as promised, using the full weight of my local influence, I've secured the presence of one Rodney Depriest in the studio. How you doing, Rodney?
Doing well, Kim. Thank you.
Well, it's good to have you in the studios. We got to know one another over the campaign trail here, and I've come to know, admire, and respect his business acumen and his ability to deliver his message. And I want you guys just to listen to Rodney, because some of you have heard and seen him on the forums and you never really got a chance to hear him. He's not the most excitable. I guess he's a local version of, what's the guy used to be on oh, man. I can't think of that.
You're scaring me.
Oh, well, he would know it. But anyway, I'll think of it in a minute. It's not Pat Paulson, but the other guy. He used to do a show. He's kind of a deadpan humor kind of guy. Anyway, we got Rodney Depriest. Rodney, first of all, just tell people a little bit about yourself and your background.
All right, I'll start out. 30-year resident of Jackson. First 10 years of my life was in Jackson. The last 20 years of my life was in Jackson. Mm-hmm. In between, I was in Clinton. Mm-hmm. Family moved out to Clinton in 1976 for my dad to get closer to work, and graduated Clinton High School, Mississippi College, education's in business, accounting degree. And shortly after that, started a construction company, and had the privilege of owning and operating that for a little over 20 years. During my tenure of construction in 1993, I was elected to the Board of Aldermen in Clinton and was able to serve 2 terms there. Decided not to run for a third term, felt like 2 was enough, and moved on. And then
did you feel like you made a difference in the 2 years? And what prompted you to even get in politics? Were you having problems with, business in terms of permitting, or just dealing with government red tape, or what prompted
it was a big transition period in 1993. We had a long-term mayor and some board members that were exiting, and that's the year that Rosemary Altman became mayor. Phil Fisher joined the board. Jehu Brabham joined the board. It was a big change, and it was an exciting time to be part of it. And at 26 years old, I mean, I ran against 5 people. It was a crowded race, and so, but it had always had a little interest, and it was a great experience for me. Learned a lot through the process. Gotcha.
All right. So you finished up your council term, and what'd you do then?
Well, continued the construction company until 2012. Trustmark Bank contacted me, asked if I would consider coming to basically build their buildings. We bought and sold real estate for the bank. We built their buildings. We managed their properties. Took care of all fixed assets that weren't IT related is what we did. And that was prior to being at Trustmark. If somebody asked me, how to manage business, I would have said absolutely. I've had my own business for over 20 years. Then I landed at Trustmark, and I got to experience a senior management role where you saw what a complex organization looks like, from board of directors, your C-suite, senior management, and 3,000 employees, 200 locations, 6 states. And I suddenly realized, oh, no, this is management. This is what a complex organization looks like. And it was a very formative period for me to be able to serve in a senior role and to be part of a real growth period in my professional life.
Folks, we're talking with Rodney Depriest. It's DepriestForMayor.com if you want to check out the website and you want to get involved with this campaign. All right, so you did that, and how long were you with Trustmark?
Left there in 2021.
Okay.
I tell everybody I never got discontent with Trustmark, but I felt my contentment waning, and my faith is everything to me, and that's just one of those prompts that Becky, my wife, and I just knew, okay, well, let's pray through this, and then just felt like it was time to leave the bank, and left with a with the prompting from the Lord, I'll show you what I got for you later. Mm-hmm. And so after leaving there, after having 30 years of really, really hard, busy work, especially my 9 years at Trustmark, it was a grinding experience that was my fault, not the bank's fault. I took a self-employed mindset into the corporate world, and I learned quickly that'll kill you, you know. But shortly after leaving the bank, a friend shared a TED talk with me, Reverend Jeffrey Brown out of Boston, Massachusetts, and how they dealt with youth violence in Boston. Mm-hmm. And it resonated with me. I started sharing it with a bunch of people. After a couple of months of sharing it, really wasn't getting any traction, and kind of processing that one day, and just genuinely kind of felt, nudging from the Lord, well, you ain't got a job. Why are you looking for somebody else to work on this? And so from there, that led to me just moving around the city, trying to build some relationships. I mean, I'm 58 now. At that point, I was the 55-year-old white guy, right? In an 80% black city, mm-hmm. and I knew I couldn't show up and just say, "Hey, I got the answers." Right. And I talked with Reverend Brown in Boston. We had some conversations back and forth. And he said, "Rodney, what I hear you got to build the relationships." He said, "What I suggest is what I did in Boston. We had a ministry of presence. We just showed up. And we consistently showed up. And what the pastors did in Boston was they, after some horrendous violence in the city, they hit the streets of Boston mm-hmm. from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. on Friday nights in the most dangerous parts of the city. And he said, "Rodney, we did what not many preachers know how to do. We showed up, we quit preaching, and we only listened. And we were a sight. Some of us had collars on, and we're out there with gang leaders and drug dealers, and we just showed up week after week after week. We weren't trying to fix anybody. Mm-hmm. But after having a consistent presence, those guys engaged the pastors, which led to relationships, which led to them coordinating meetings between the police and the gang leaders and the police and the drug dealers and negotiating settlements between the gangs. And so that just got me moving around the city, not showing up from a violence perspective in the most dangerous parts. I just had to meet some people.
Right.
And so I met a group of pastors that pray every Thursday at noon, and most Thursdays I still pray with them to this day, 3.5 years later. Mm-hmm. And then led on to getting to know Vince Gordon, who's Inner City Young Life Director for Jackson, very, very well. Representative Ronnie Crudup Jr. Mm-hmm. Right. So we're in a Thursday morning. We call it a prayer group. It's a Thursday morning conversation. It's focused on Jackson. We pray for Jackson. We discuss issues in Jackson, and then it's also kind of a safe space where when it isn't going right, we can vent there as well. Right. All that being said, that just led to some really, really dear relationships across the city, which led me into the schools, going with Vince, going to Jim Hill High School every Friday morning for their Tigers for Christ program. For the last 2 summers, Becky and I have had the privilege of going to Young Life Camp in North Carolina with Inner City Jackson students, and just getting to, one, be present enough to develop trust. Once the trust was there, young people like to talk. Mm-hmm. I mean, when they trust you and they know you care about where they are and how they are, and you're not coming in with a plan to fix them. Right. They, and once that transparency and they opened up, we just recognized just how, quite honestly, traumatized so many of our young people in Jackson are.
Folks, we're talking to Rodney Depriest, candidate for mayor, DepriestForMayor.com. We just want him to talk about himself, his plans for the city of Jackson, why he's running, etc. So we're just letting him flow. So you can continue on. Why are you running? I mean, what is it you see you think you can offer that Jackson might need, and etc.?
Well, the idea of me running for mayor first came up in the black community. Some of these relationships that I had made, started bringing it up over 2 years ago, and I was pretty dismissive of the thought. That's not what I was doing. It wasn't my plan. It wasn't my agenda. And then over time, about this time last year, some of these couple pastors and friends came to me and re-engaged that conversation, and we all agreed, Becky and I and these men just agreed, well, we're gonna have a season of prayer over this. And all I can tell you is in a very short period of time, My heart changed. Becky's heart's changed. We felt like this is what God has for us right now. Now I'm hesitant to overstate that. There's no doubt we felt led into this race.
Right.
I'm not one of those people that says God told me to run and I'm going to be your next mayor.
Right.
This is a journey of obedience.
Standing where he tells you to stand.
That's it. We're staying on that path, and we're going to trust him for the outcome.
I couldn't agree with you more. At the end of the day, I've been saying this not just because I'm in the campaign, but in order to get things done, so often you got to check your ego at the door. It's not about you if you're really trying to serve the people. If all you want to do is get in there, you need a title or a job or something, I can understand that. I'm not looking for either one. I just see how certainly things could be done. So much of what needs to be done in Jackson is just stop doing stupid stuff and stop doing things that the Lord would not be pleased with, stealing, all the little things like that that's causing us to trail behind other cities and towns. And I just think we need to lead by example, and I think you're doing that.
Well, and I think we've got a season of nuts and bolts and blocking and tackling ahead of us.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You've heard me say it over and over in forums. I mean, I can't get out of my contractor mindset. We've got to get the foundation right.
Right. That's right.
And there's nothing glamorous about that. There's not a bunch of great fun plans that people when you're working on that foundation. But I've built enough things to know if we don't get this initial stage right, the future's not going to be what we need it to be.
And to that point, Rodney, that is one of the things that I noticed on the campaign. I see the things that needs to be done in Jackson. I see how it can be done and how it can be made to work. But again, people want the spectacular. They want the sparkle and the frizz and all that kind of things like that. And it's hard for me. I can't be genuine to myself going that route, trying to sparkle someone with the BS when I believe what they need to hear is the truth. I think a lot of the frustration that I heard on the campaign trail from the constituents, from the voters, is basically just out of ignorance of what's really going on. They don't have enough information. You need somebody to give you. That's why I wanted Ted Hennepin to just come on and just tell us what's going on with the water, because the water sewer affects so much of what's wrong with Jackson.
Absolutely.
And if he could just give us a clear understanding so the people in Presidential Hill will understand, okay, this is why we can't get a permanent fix to this problem over here, because it's going to be 6 months before they get over here. So people can get things, because the reality of the situation will allow people to calm down. Most people anyway. And if we're not willing to do that, then all we're doing is manipulating people for our own gain, and I'm not going to do that.
Well, and I don't think we've been honest with the residents of Jackson over the whole water issue. There's been a lot of conversation about they're stealing our source of revenue.
Right.
Well, we had a collapsed water system that was bankrupt is what was taken away.
Right.
There is no stream of revenue. To this day, the water system is losing $3 million a month to this day. Mm-hmm. And so this idea of, we have to get this thing back.
$3 million a month?
A month.
Whew.
It's losing $3 million a month right now.
Jeez.
And so absolutely, do we want to voice in operations of a system down the road?
Yeah,
yes, we do. But the thought that we gave up these streams of revenue, and one of the things about the water sewer system, it's an enterprise fund.
Right.
By state law, that money stays within the water sewer fund. You cannot generate a profit and move it over into the general fund to build streets or pay police or anything else. It's not allowed by law. And so the people have been misled on what was actually taken away.
Precisely.
You need a voice in the future management of it, but I'm of the opinion you get that voice by stewardship, being credible with what you still have in your hands. If we want to have a conversation with the federal or state government about ongoing operation of a water system, why don't we demonstrate that we can run City Hall?
There you go. Folks, and that right there is the reason why I recommend Rodney Depriest. That year's experience as council person there, you heard the terminology he's using about the enterprise funds, et cetera. That's stuff that I don't have, Zach doesn't have, Lily doesn't have, John doesn't have. John's a good guy. But if we're going to play the game more effectively for the citizens of Jackson, let's keep John in the Senate so he can keep working his magic. Put Rodney in there. That stabilizes the system so the powers that be feel comfortable with investing in Jackson. It ain't rocket science. We're not asking you to do anything. But if you want to do the melanated stuff, go ahead. Ain't no money in it. Our number 6, well, we're not going to take calls. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, folks, we got Depriest, not a priest, Depriest in the house, Rodney Depriest, DepriestForMayor.com. Folks, the skill set to be a senator is not the skill set that you use going to be a mayor. The skill set to be a talk show host is not the skill set you need to be mayor. The skill set you need is what you just heard this man articulate over the last 15, 20 minutes. You can do what you want. If you are into the pride thing, and I'm just telling you, you can't pay bills with pride. But if that's the way you want to go for it. I ain't mad at you. I'm disappointed, but I ain't mad. I understand everybody's got but we need to elevate our game. And the thing about Rodney is that he has a calming effect on the whatever table he's sitting at. He's not excitable. He's going to sit there and look at the issues and the data and the facts and go with that. Because that's what he had to do. When you had to report to your superiors up at Trustmark, and you had 3,000 employees, that's almost 2,000 more employees than the city of Jackson has.
It's a big job.
Yeah.
It's a big job. And we, like I said, those 9 years were very formative. And even from the standpoint of business continuity, because if downtown Jackson shut down, we had a problem.
Right.
And people didn't care if we had a water leak or an ice storm in Jackson. Folks that are banking with us in Pensacola and Birmingham and Houston, they don't care.
Right.
And just the planning and the risk mitigation and the risk management and the things you do. And then when those hard events did hit, we had a hurricane hit Panama City. Mm-hmm. Well, those people needed a bank and the disaster recovery. So all of those type things really taught me a lot, prepared me well, and they're the kind of things that I have just spinning in the back of my mind of that's what we have to do to be effective as a city.
Right. Folks, we're talking with DepriestForMayor.com. Rodney's in the studios with us. And, Jackson is facing a myriad of problems. Is there any one thing that you have on your mind that you that you want to do first, or you definitely want to do while you're there? Or because my whole goal was just try to stabilize the systems of Jackson so people would have confidence in the dealing with the city of Jackson. I was going to do so much of what Trump is doing. Trump is just doing deals. Everybody else is going across the globe trying to start more wars. His whole thing is he runs in somebody in the airport. Oh, you do this? Huh. Oh, so you grow plants. You know what? I might need to order a couple hundred plants for all my locations. That's the kind of guy he is. He's not out there trying to, you got on a gay pride flag. I want to do business. No, he does business with people who want to do business. That's what I see you bringing to the city of Jackson. That's what I was going to bring, that people who want to just, hey, man, let's get our money, let's get our hustle on. You can do it here in the city of Jackson without all the red tape and the hassle.
That's right. And there are kind of two stages to this in the way I see it. And Kim, you heard these questions in forums. Mm-hmm. I really didn't care anything for what do you do in the first 100 days.
Right.
I mean, yeah, we need to pay attention to that. But all these grand plans in the first 100 days, it's like I said earlier, we're going to go back. We're going to get the foundation right.
Right.
Structurally, organizationally, and we're going to hire a public works director. We're going to do just some of that nuts and bolts so we're moving forward. And then financially, have the assessments and understand where's the money been going. Are we accounting for it well? Are we actually collecting what we should collect?
Right.
Are we paying our bills on time? The thought that we've had one contractor, through the 1% sales tax projects that was due $1.5 million in interest.
Wow. For
bills being late, and the money was in the bank to pay the bill.
See.
And so those kind of things just almost my head, like my head's going to explode. How do you let that happen? Right.
And that's one of the things that I was saying when people ask, well, what are you going to do to grow the city of Jackson business wise? I said, you know what? I'm not. I'm going to allow you to do it. We're going to create the conditions where you can do it. It's not rocket science. I don't believe the government should be doing vegetable markets and things like that. There may be some extenuating circumstances like that, but I want to get it where we don't have to subsidize people coming in the city to do business in the city. We want them to come in because they want to be here.
Well, I appreciate this chance to share some of it because you've heard it in some of the forums. But at the end of the day, my view of the city's role in growth of business and economic development is we create the environment that business can thrive.
Right. That's right.
Business people are the best economic developers that we have. Very few businesses shut the doors and leave because they wanted to. Something happened to the conditions. Now, some people make poor business decisions. We get all
It
that.
happens, yeah.
But when we look at where we are and you look at what is tying our hands, well, you know, Kim, my number one thing what got me started is the violence in Jackson.
Right.
And you will not have the quality of life, the economic development, the jobs that our residents deserve to have as long as people don't feel safe. If employees don't feel safe, if customers don't feel safe, we're just not going to get there. And you put right behind that, you got the whole infrastructure issues. And the number of times in my role with Trustmark when every time we thought we were going to lose water pressure, we spent tens of thousands of dollars to mitigate the risk so that the headquarters could continue to operate. That's so adverse to the climate where business can thrive. If you want to look at, fortunately, downtown Jackson, aesthetically, it looks really good right now.
It does.
It's just far too empty. And so many people have left because the water issue in a building like downtown, it's not, get me bottled water and put a porta-john outside. Mechanical systems shut down when you don't have adequate water pressure. And so you can only put up with that for so long. And so, therefore, some of the buildings downtown went into foreclosure. They've been sold. Fortunately, a developer's coming in now, buying some of it up, and that looks very, very positive. But we have to know if we want the economic development, the jobs, the quality of life in Jackson, there has to be laser focus on violence and infrastructure.
Folks, that's what I'm talking about. There is, we have to pivot. He mentioned downtown and the lack of businesses at this point. We have to pivot, and there's only a few revenue streams and a few avenues available to us to generate businesses and income, and we got to be very diligent about that. We don't have the luxury of getting it wrong the next 4 years. I was talking with an architect that had worked on the expansion of one of the government buildings down there, and they had gotten the wrong information. They were thinking that the size of a water line coming into downtown Jackson was larger than it was. And it turned out, had it not been for all those empty buildings that had gone vacant, they wouldn't have had enough water pressure to complete the project. So it just happens to be that, again, that's why the details and the data and the facts mean something. You can't be emotional. You need to be dispassionate. That's why we need the calmness of a Rodney Depriest at the helm of the city of Jackson. That itself is going to buy us a few points in the bond market. It's going to buy a few points in the markets in general. Where people say, "Well, let's give it a few let's give it a few more years. Let's see if it's worth doing." That's why it's important that we get it right, in my estimation. Now, you can do what you want to do, but if you really want the city of Jackson and what's best for the city of Jackson, I ask that you would give this man your consideration. Now, Rodney, what about personnel? Are you coming in there? You doing wholesale firings or what?
That's not the way I work. I think you have to know that the city has to continue to operate,
right.
Number one, and then you have to fairly assess whether or not do we have the right people in the right chair. You might just need to move somebody from one seat to another. Have they been adequately trained? Have they been provided the resources they need? I think we all know there will be some changes.
Right.
But this idea, and I run into it periodically, you just got to get rid of them all. That's not the way I work.
Well, it's a recipe for disaster. You need that institutional knowledge. Even if the people there were not optimal when in the previous administration, they still have inside baseball knowledge on how things work. This is what I'm talking about, being clear-eyed and not being emotional as you're making these tough decisions. So that's one of the reasons why I think it was the New Jerusalem Forum when I had an opportunity to sit in the audience because they wouldn't let me on the stage, and I got to listen to you. And I said, you know what, this guy really has what it takes to make the city run. And like I said before, I ain't trying to give myself a butter cookie or a parade in my honor, but I don't do things based on my ego. I got a healthy ego. Ain't nothing wrong with my ego. It's just the fact that, dude, because when the traffic lights are working, I benefit from it. I don't benefit from them if they're not working. I'm as much danger as everybody else. All right, well, let's go on to another topic. Let's take this break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the airport. All right, we got the cool and calm Rodney Depriest in the studios, our next mayor for the city of Jackson. If you want Jackson to do better, now you vote any way you want. I'm just saying this is who I'm voting for. I'm giving you the reasons why. I want Jackson to work, and it can't. Why? Jackson's just afraid to be great. They're afraid to do the things that's going to lead to greatness. Okay, when the water system was flat on its back, we got Tate involved. He's saying his crew in here to fix things. We're calling in Depriest. Depriest is the wolf. Like in Pulp Fiction. He's coming in to solve problems. All right, I asked you about the airport. What's your thoughts on the airport? People saying, oh, we're going to lose the airport, and yada, 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 yada. You have any thoughts one way or the other?
I think it's a tremendous asset. I think anything that is rightfully ours, we need to be in a position that we protect it. We don't let anybody take anything from us. But at the same time, it's an asset. It has real value. and I would like to see the calculation of just what is that value. I think the other thing we need to recognize is we're looking for support from the state. We're looking for support from surrounding areas. So it's not like we can take our toy and put it on the shelf and say we're not going to have this conversation. We're not going to talk about this.
But we need you to help us over here.
You know, yeah. and the reality is when the airport was built, you know, Jackson was the city that drove the traffic to the airport. Now the surrounding communities drive more traffic than Jackson proper does. And so let's be open to some cooperation. I'm going to reiterate. I don't want to give anything away. Not going to give anything away. You protect the assets that are yours, but sometimes you need to realize the value of the assets you have and just what can be done if you maximize that value.
Well, you know, in book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Kim Kiyosaki, he points out it's better to control something rather than to own something. If you got all the resources coming towards you, you don't need to see your name over the door. You getting all the revenues. That's what Rodney just stated. This is what I've been saying. Folks, let's see what the value is. Let's see how we can improve the assets. I had one of the board commissioners. I didn't know he was on the airport board. Talked to me at the Mount Nebo, and he was telling me about all that. I didn't know they had their own water system, et cetera. All that's fine and good, but there's still, okay, if they're looking at your water system and they want it, well, what do they have that we want? You know, why can't we work out a deal? Why should we hold on to something that we're losing value on just to say that we own it? No, we got too much of Jackson looking like that same attitude where we just want to have it for, I don't know, pride purposes. And like I say, pride doesn't pay bills. They hadn't paid mine. So I would agree with you. Let's look at the value of the asset, because from what I've heard to date, I haven't heard anybody tell me what the value is.
I haven't heard that either.
And they got a lot of good land around the airport that if somebody was to build on it, they wouldn't know whether or not it was the city of Flowood building or not. But the revenues would be coming to Jackson as far as sales tax would be concerned. So let's be concerned about trying to get it up off the ground rather than trying to hold somebody else back or hold somebody else down. That's how I see it.
Absolutely. And I'm just determined that we not always be looking for the state to come partner and help us, that we can be the state's partner on some things.
Right.
You know, it's an absolute honor to be the capital city.
Right. It's a duty too now.
That's where I was going. There is a huge responsibility because as goes Jackson, it reflects on the entire state of Mississippi, and we have to be willing to be proud of the honor, but accept the responsibility that goes with it. And instead of constantly looking for what the state can do for us, what if we start looking for where might we have common goals? Where can we help you?
That's right.
I'm not worried about curing all the ills of the past. I would just like for us to work with the state. Let's find 5 things we agree on and just demonstrate to everybody that we can go accomplish these 5 things.
Folks, we're talking with Rodney Depriest. Do you see why the Committee of 50, their support really doesn't make sense when you have somebody talk as much common sense as you hear coming from this man here? And again, the skill set to be a legislator is totally different than being a mayor. And if you're going to be honest with yourself, go with what works. Don't be emotional on this thing here. Now, you talking about developing the assets of Jackson. You know, we talked during the break about feeding the homeless. You know, one of the things when I would do, as far as cleaning up the city of Jackson, one Saturday out of the month. They do this in the country of Rwanda. One Saturday out of the month, the whole country's from, I think, like 7 in the morning to noontime, they clean up, wherever they are. We start right here in Jackson. The first Saturday of your administration, we have a cleanup day. Just clean up your yard. Then next month, we'll get whatever stuff you had left in your yard that you couldn't get towed away. It's cheaper for us to pay that as a city to come get it and tow it away and increase the property values overall than to sit back and say somebody else has got to do it. It'd be cheaper for us to pay the dumping fees for the contractor to go out and dump it. But if we catch him dumping it illegally, we're going to take his car, his truck, and he's going to work He's going to give work to the city with all his employees for a week. That'll get the message across, because what we're doing, we're just constantly going out here and picking up behind people, and we're not training them not to throw things down. We gotta cultivate more adult attitudes, I think.
Well, and when did we just lose the pride in our own front yard?
Hello.
And now we're more and more guilty of, well, we might cut the grass, but we're not going to get the leaves out of the curb.
Uh-huh.
And I had a friend of mine lives in Belhaven, and they had a big cleanup last fall,
uh-huh.
and and they kind of coined the phrase of, let's put the curb back in curb appeal. So
right.
Let's just clean the curb up. That's what he did. Mm-hmm. And then the neighbors on both sides of him noticed it. And then he noticed one wasn't getting it, so he went and cleaned theirs up.
That's right. And you know what? It's going to take that extra effort until people get embarrassed by having their yard being the worst one on the block. It's just something that we've gotten away from. But if with this generation don't teach these kids how to, if we don't rear them properly, they'll never know. And their kids will never know. We're just going to have a losing team.
Well, I'm a firm believer in the saying, but that which you see modeled, you'll repeat.
That's right.
And that's what's happening in Jackson right now. We have far too many young people. It's not their fault that they're repeating the actions that we don't agree with, because it's been modeled to them for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to model something better.
Right.
And I'm the first to say, we'll get back on the violence part of it. It's not JPD's fault that we got the violence problem in Jackson.
That's right.
It's the failure of men in the community and the failure of the faith community in Jackson.
That's right.
For far too long, we have wanted people to come see us at church. And I love telling my friends at church and even other churches, if Jesus showed up in Jackson, he's not going to be in our sanctuary.
That's right.
So why don't we figure out where he would be, and let's go spend a little more time there.
It goes back to what you were speaking of earlier. I remember during graduation week, one of the gentlemen from the class of 49, at the end of his message, he told us to pull out our they gave you your diploma, and then they gave you a little pocket diploma. He said, pull out your diploma. Look at it. It says the rights, privileges, and responsibilities. He said, not everybody's diploma says that, but you have a responsibility. And that has always stuck with me. That everything ain't about your rights. You have a responsibility to make the world better and make the places where you are better. Make it where, I want another Morehouse, man. They ain't even got to see. All they got to see is that you graduated from Morehouse. I want that person. That's what we have to do. Jackson doesn't have to go the way of Memphis or New Orleans or Birmingham with the violence. We can break out and go in a different direction, but you got to be willing to try something different. Rodney, you're something different, and I commend you to the people of Jackson highly. I think you'll do a great job, brother.
Well, and there's just so much of this as far as what can we do ourselves?
Right.
What can we empower our youth to do themselves? And you were mentioning the diploma. Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard of what they refer to as the success sequence?
Yeah.
The success sequence is graduate from high school, get a full-time job, marry before you have children. Mm-hmm. You do those three things, and you have a 97% chance that you will not live in poverty.
Right.
97%. That is completely within the control of any young person in Jackson, and we need to be ingraining that in their mind. We need to be leading them and helping them get there. If they need help with getting that diploma, let's help them get it. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't take a program.
That's right.
That just takes some homeschooling.
That's right.
And taking care of things.
It takes us adults, us men and women, being on one accord. And that's one of the things that I saw being on the campaign trail, is that we really, as citizens of Jackson, we don't have an overarching goal. Everybody's got individual wish lists that they want to have done. I want my streets paved, I want my water clean, and all that's part of government. I agree. But I always believe that if we look out for our kids and their future, we're going to have the commonality that all of us can get around. And if you're looking out for the kids and their future, in order to finance it, you got to keep the property values up. That goes back to the cleaning of the streets. It's a simple formula, but there ain't no money in it like that, the way people have been making money off the various grants. And because now people are making money off, oh, Rodney has gray hair. Rodney, I got a grant here for black dye. You want to get your hair dyed? You know, I mean, that's how it's evolved to.
Oh, yeah.
And it's sad, but doesn't mean that we have to continue going along with this. It has only been the last 20, 30 years we got like this.
Well, and you talked it on the campaign trail. We have to start looking inward. What can we do? Where have we made the mistakes, and where have we blown it in the past that's gotten us where we are, and let's do our part to demonstrate that we know how to take care of this. And even back to the success sequence conversation, having people get out of poverty is not the ultimate goal. You want to aspire for more, but that's the first step towards the middle class is get out of poverty. And that is completely within everybody's control.
Absolutely. Well, that success sequence should be stamped on the back of any document coming out of Jackson Public Schools. Anything they send home to the parents, any book or notebook or they hand out to the students should have that success form. They should see it from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. That's constantly seeing. Like you said, if it's repeated enough, it'll be ingrained in the mind. We just got to start doing the things that works. We've gotten away from it because everybody with a PhD wants to try their master thesis or their doctoral thesis out on these kids. And we just need to go back to the basics, which is what you're saying.
We have to. And we have to acknowledge that City Hall alone can't fix Jackson.
Right. That's right.
City Hall's going to have to get back to the basics. City Hall's going to get the foundation right. City Hall's going to have to provide the services that only City Hall can provide. But then neighbor by neighbor, street by street, neighborhood by neighborhood, we got to take pride in what's ours.
That's right.
And if Rodney Street doesn't need any help, well, I need to be willing to
go
double
up
across
on
town and go help somewhere else.
That's right.
And I recently read a book, Fighting Shadows, and one of the quotes in it is that we have to move beyond the boundary of our own concern. And far too often, we just don't push past that boundary.
That's true.
And I've had conversations. I live in North Jackson. I've had conversations with some of my neighbors. We've got, something happens on East Northside Drive. Well, everybody's in an uproar about it. Well, when you start thinking about it, well, why is it happening there? It's because we didn't care enough when it happened on West Northside Drive.
That's right.
So we got to move beyond the boundary of our own concern.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here. We'll be right back. All right, the final few minutes of the Kim Wade Show with Rodney Depriest, DepriestForMayor.com. You've heard him a bit here this afternoon. I commend him to you highly. We want to stabilize Jackson. We want to get people to calm down, and he will bring a calming effect. And to all you folks in the business community, hey, now you the one said you want John. Go with John if that's what you want to do. He done told you. Go look at the Clarion Ledger article. That's what I would ask you to do. Tell me the difference between what he's saying and what Chokwe's saying. Other than the anger, what's the difference? All right, Rodney, I'll let you have the last 2 minutes, brother.
Thank you, Kim. Election Day is Tuesday. I can't believe it's here. And I do. I encourage everybody just to consider what does it take to lead a city like Jackson. And I'm far from the perfect guy. I don't have all the answers. But through my work with the community and understanding better and better the needs of our young people, that's what's just nudged me on into this. And through the business experience, the education, through the experience with the city of Clinton, the fact that, I've had the opportunity to see municipal government done well. I understand the relationship between a mayor and a council, and that you aren't going to always agree, but you don't have to be disagreeable.
Right.
And there's just so much there. And if we genuinely I only want to be part of something that's sustainable. And if we're going to be the results are going to be sustainable, we're going to have to expand the circle some. We're going to have to be sure. I know Rodney's perspective on any one issue can only get so much of it, and we've got to be sure that we've got some different life experiences, some different perspectives there. Now, those that are part of that conversation, they got to be looking for a solution. They can't be part of just trying to throw the rocks and tear it up. But we have to do that, because through bringing together, through looking at the holistically at the issues we have, we're going to find the right solutions. We're going to get there. And Reverend Jeffrey Brown out of Boston that I mentioned earlier, he one of his quotes he frequently uses is those closest to the pain often best know the solution. And we are so guilty of, from a distance, looking, assessing, and trying to go fix somebody else. And I'm just determined that, we're going to be leaders. We have to lead in this thing. But why don't we have those hard conversations? Why don't we have those uncomfortable conversations?
Rodney Depriest for Mayor.com. This is the job for White Boy Bob. Gonna take a break. Be back in 22 hours. See you on the radio. Peace.